Hey class, this is Dr. Eisenman, and I'm the System Director for Human Blueprint. And I'd like to be the first to welcome you to this system, HMBP. And I'd like to just have your attention for a few to give you the big picture of what this course is and where it fits into your curriculum. So, Human Blueprint is one of 4 systems, and it's going to make up what we call a thread. And thread 1, this thread, is one of 4 threads that you'll take across the first 18 months of your preclinical training. This thread 1 focuses on foundational sciences. Human Blueprint specifically covers the basic sciences that you were likely exposed to in your undergraduate studies or while you were preparing for medical school admission. This course is going to run about 8 weeks. In that time, you're going to have 4 quizzes, 1 system exam, and then assessments that are also tied to team-based learning and also to the research curriculum. And you can find the full grading schema in the syllabus for this. In terms of content, we cover cell and molecular biology, embryology, metabolism including carb, lipid, nucleotide, and amino acids, genetics, pharmacology, radiology, principles of clinical medicine, and then the research curriculum. On a scheduling note, your in-class foundational science sessions, they're typically in the morning before noon. There's a couple in the afternoon. Most principles of clinical medicine or PCM sessions run in the afternoons on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but be certain to check for any exceptions on that. So you can already tell there's going to be a lot of information to cover in Human Blueprint. And so how do we organize it all? This course has been built around what we call big picture concepts. Think of these as rocks, and the supporting facts and details are like the gravel and sand. So the key idea here is that we want you to fill your jar with the rocks first. That is the big picture concepts, and then let the gravel and sand fill in around them. Because if you pour the sand in first, those big picture concepts, the rocks, they're never going to fit in your jar. Building your knowledge this way gives you the most complete preclinical foundation, and that's what's going to help you become a great clinician. So let's take a second and talk about one of those rocks. In the context of becoming an excellent clinician, one of the most critical skills you can build is recognizing trends in a patient's symptoms and then knowing when and how to refer them to an appropriate specialist. You're not going to be expected to know everything when you're practicing, but being able to see the pattern and get your patient to the right expert, that's a genuine superpower, and that's going to be one of your rocks. Here's another big rock for your jar: understanding mechanism of disease. So rather than you just memorizing disconnected facts, we really want you to understand why a disease happens, what's actually going wrong at the molecular and cellular level. And when you start to understand mechanism, the details start to make sense on their own. And you can reason your way to a diagnosis or to a treatment instead of relying upon that memorization alone. So you're sitting there thinking, how am I actually going to learn all of this? Well, we're going to use a range of learning approaches throughout the course. First, you're going to have the How to Med student sessions, and that's going to help you build strong study habits and just basically give you an introduction to the system. There's independent learning on your own time, and that's because we simply don't have time to teach everything in class. We'll do some in-class learning with polling and other active exercises to keep things interactive and interesting. You'll work in team-based learning groups for a session. We're also going to hold patient conferences to connect the science to real cases, real families that are dealing with disease. And then there's going to be a couple of other fun review sessions along the way. The point here is to give you multiple ways to engage with the material because different concepts stick best in different formats. So you're thinking, hey, Eisman, why teach it in this order? So we stack the materials like rocks in a deliberate build order. Each phase earns the next, and every block ends at the bedside. First, read and build molecular and cell biology, where you learn how the blueprint is read and the machinery it builds. Second, power up, metabolism. This cell is built, so now we turn it on, starting with carbs because their regulation is the cleanest. Third, inherit and misprint, genetics, woven through metabolism. Most metabolic disease is really a typo in the blueprint, so we read it live right next to its pathway. And fourth, integrate, pathways competing and talking, genes moving through populations from the cell to the patient to the population. So the elephant in the room is first aid. The simplest way to think about first aid. First aid's kind of like a dictionary. Human Blueprint, this course, is going to teach you the language. First aid is a reference. It's built for fast lookup under exam pressure. It's organized by discipline, organ system, and then metabolism. We're going to build in the learning order that is specific for a first-time learner. And we need each concept to set up the next. Think of it this way. You can't learn a language by just simply reading the dictionary front to back. So our sequence differs on purpose. Metabolism comes earlier, and genetics is spread out. This is kind of like a staircase, not a contradiction. The payoff is that once you can speak the language, the dictionary, first aid, becomes far more useful. And then you can play around with first aid to your heart's content, and it's going to make more and more sense after we teach the content in the order that we taught it. Okay, wrap up time. Let's talk about the big takeaways. Why should you care about and remember biochemistry, genetics, and this course? Honest truth time. As a clinician, you're not going to have, nor are you ever expected to have, all of the answers or expertise yourself. But your superpower is going to be the ability to recognize trends in your patient's symptoms and make that referral to the appropriate expert. That's what this foundational science and this course will make possible for your future career. So just a couple more takeaways to keep in mind. First, be honest with yourself. This is going to be hard. There's a lot of material and it moves so quickly. Second, and just as important, triage is okay. You're not going to be able to master every single detail, and that's expected. Learn to prioritize the rocks, the big picture concepts, and then let that sand settle around them. Focusing on what matters most is, in fact, a skill in and of itself. All right, so year one, thread one, Human Blueprint. This is where it all begins. It's going to be challenging, but you're ready for it. So let's do this.